Now and Always and Forever. We have such an amazing guest. Myrrhanda Jones is with us today. She was Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen 2009 and Miss Florida 2013.
Hey everybody, I'm super excited to be here. Thank you so much, Hannah, for putting all of this together and just having all of us formers on. It's such a fun thing to be able to catch up with everybody. So I've really enjoyed watching your show, but to be on it is really exciting.
Oh, well, thank you so much for being here. So can you share a little bit about who you are, where you're from, and what made you decide to compete in the Miss Florida program?
Yeah, absolutely. So my name is Myrrhanda Jones. I'm from Gainesville, Florida originally, actually a small town outside of Gainesville called Hawthorne, Florida. That's where I grew up, but went to school and everything in Gainesville. Gainesville's really, has a really special place in my heart. For me, I did not grow up a pageant person whatsoever. I grew up a competitive baton twirler, which in it of itself is kind of has its pageant aspects, obviously, but being able to be a competitive baton twirler from the age of 6, I mean, I traveled across the world. I was able to perform at the Junior Olympics. I was able to perform at the Olympics in London in 2012. It provided so many incredible opportunities and just lifelong friends that, are just so close to me. So I really started twirling baton and getting competitive around the age of 6, really started getting good, we'll say, around the age of 10, and that's when I met Allison Walsh, Allison Krieger, when I met her. She was a University of Florida Gatorette, and during that time she had students that she would teach in the local area baton twirling too, and so that's kind of my first introductory kind of person into pageants was Allison. From that point, she had asked me to be one of her Sunshine Princesses, and my family didn't have the means to be able to make that happen that year, but always was kind of, just something that I wanted to do, but wasn't sure, what exactly that would look like for me. And then I had a close family friend, Courtney Sexton, compete the year prior to me competing in 2008. And so I had been asked by my baton coach to go down with her family and go and watch Miss Florida. So I went down for Miss Florida week back when it was in St. Pete and watched all of the competitions, met my very first Miss Florida, and had such a magical moment. And then at the end of the week was very happily surprised to watch Courtney win Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen. And so it was really exciting, and just it kind of solidified that this was something that I wanted to do. So the following year, when I first asked my mom whether or not I could compete, the following year my mom told me no. And said, no, I've raised you to be beautiful on the inside, and that's what's important, not beauty on the outside. And I don't think that pageant stuff is really all that worth it. And so for me, I went and did a bunch of research and realized that I could win a lot of scholarship money if I was really good. I knew at the Miss America's Outstanding Teen level, I could win $50,000 in scholarship money if I, was really good at this. And so I brought it back to my mom. I had a whole PowerPoint and everything to convince her why this was something I wanted to do. And at the end of it, she's like, absolutely, that's great. So once she approved it, I competed for Miss Gainesville's Outstanding Teen, which was a hot mess, but quite enjoyable. Everybody has those crazy pageant experiences. Mine ended with me like leaping off the stage into the wings around these massive 4-foot paper lanterns that were on the stage. So it was a crazy night, but I walked away with that title, and then went to Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen, and it was such an incredible experience. So that was really how I got involved, and I couldn't be happier about it. I mean, that time just holds such a special place in my heart.
That's such a cool story. I love hearing how every person's journey to it is sort of different. And so as Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen, what was the best part of your year?
Oh, there were so many things. I think for me, I knew I could twirl baton, and I knew walking into a pageant, talent was 35% at the time. I knew I could do that really well. I really didn't know if I could do any of the other stuff well at all. And so it was very, it was this really raw, really, original feeling of competing at Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen. And it was one of the only years that they've done this, but they went from a top 10 on finals night. No one recompeted. We went from a top 10 directly to the announcing of a winner. And so there wasn't that, 1-2 moment of it's going to happen, it could be me, it might not be. So we were all just kind of standing there, and they went down through, and I just stood there and thought, I made it to the top 10. This was more than I had ever thought I was going to do. And so for me, it was just such a surreal moment that this was happening, and I didn't know why. And I was wearing this $80 ridiculous ombre dress that basically looked like tie-dye on stage, that my mom had hand rhinestoned, and I had no idea what I was doing. And my year, there were 10 days in between the day that I was crowned Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen and when I went to MAOT. And so all of us had completed MAOT paperwork when we showed up for Miss Florida. So it was insane. And to add on top of that, there was a week of baton twirling nationals in between that. So I went to baton nationals in Indiana. My brother actually turned in all sorts of paperwork. There were issues with my music, all sorts of stuff. And so really Miss America's Outstanding Teen was honestly an experience that still sticks out to me now. But definitely during my year was a highlight for the fact that I got to meet all of these incredible young women from all across the country. They're definitely now doing both of them. There's definitely a difference between Miss America's Outstanding Teen and Miss America. And my MAOT class, those girls have my soul. I'm one of the lucky ones. Savvy Shields actually sat next to me in the dressing room at MAOT. So we actually got on a Zoom call the other day, all of my class, and she goes, I still have a pair of sweatpants from that week from you that you let me borrow. And so, it was such a cool experience, and being the hometown girl of being in Florida and going out and doing all of those appearances that they have you do in Orlando was just the coolest experience. So I think that by far is one of the biggest highlights. Besides that, obviously a ton of work with my platform and being in hospitals all across the state was, that's a very stereotypical answer, but it is so true. Being able to walk into a room and be what makes a little girl smile is incredible. A little boy be like, oh, I like football instead, let's talk about that. And you're like, yeah, absolutely, and being able to be that light of hope for just a short period of time is so incredible. And I mean, that continued throughout my year as Miss, but there's no words that can ever put what that means and how that impacts you individually.
Yeah, it's so special. It's the little experiences, walking into those rooms, things that you never expected, and you feel like, I'm here to give to you, but deep down, that they're really giving to you because you're learning those lifelong experiences that you're going to remember forever.
Exactly. I have a very specific memory of walking into a hospital room, there being this little girl, and there is something very raw and very real about children that understand that they are ill, children that know that they're sick and might not make it. And this little girl looked at me and she goes, oh yeah, I was in a appointment earlier, and they said I'm not going to make it till the end of the week. And you just freeze in that moment of, they're right, and they understand that, and yet there is that feeling of you might not understand everything else that's happening in your world. And so to have that moment, and I walked out of the room at the end of it and just cried, and the mom came out and she was crying, and it was just that feeling of I was able to have that impact, yet she was able to have a lasting impact on me. And, the kids throughout the years, are always why I did this, and just being someone that was in a hospital after a traumatic accident and knowing what that felt like. I felt like I had to do something to be able to at least bring, a minute or two of happiness and joy.
Yeah, bring that hope into their lives.
Yeah, exactly.
So I know you went to the University of Florida and you were at Anchorage. What was one of your favorite memories from twirling for the Gators?
I recently watched Leah's interview as well, and there is a feeling that you truly cannot describe. So there's one difference between Leah and I. They run out, and then we run out as being a part of the marching band. So as Gatorettes, pregame, which half of the people aren't even in the stadium yet, because they're still tailgating and, they're meandering their way into the stadium, except for on big games. And I remember my freshman year, we played Kentucky at home, and we had a sold out crowd. And I grew up in Gainesville. I went to football games with sold out crowds growing up. It's a vastly different thing to stand in the side back tunnel and to look up and see 96,000 of your best friends, your biggest fans. And there's like a subtle, slow, it feels quiet, it's really not, but this moment when you're standing there and we all are in a line, and there's this moment that the band director turns around and goes like this, and the center snare drummer ends up playing taps, and once that happens, everyone runs out. And for me, it was pretty cool because that was how I met my future husband. And so he was that guy our last year, and it was awesome. But to be able to be there and look out and see and just have that adrenaline and the shakiness and the feeling of like, this is the coolest thing I'm ever going to do. And it's just, it's incredible. So I loved my years as skaterette. It truly provided some of my lifelong best friends. It's such an awesome network of women that have gone on to do incredible things, that come back for homecoming games. And it's incredible. I mean, like I said earlier, I got to go and perform at the London Olympics, and it just was insane. We were the very first non-British performance group to ever perform on the Buckingham Palace Mall, which is the road right in front of it. So it was incredible. Like, we had such a good time, and it was just awesome.
Wow. So something that I think a lot of people may not realize about your year as Miss Florida 2013, when you went to Miss America, you competed with a torn ACL, torn MCL. You went on to win the preliminary talent award, and you got third runner-up. Like, wow. What was your initial reaction when you became injured in rehearsal? And what made you decide to power through? You're faced with such an unexpected thing. I don't think that anyone would ever think that would happen.
Yeah, no, trust me, I didn't. It was such a surreal day because it was my very last preliminary competition day. And so there was kind of that feeling of, this is it, everything else is in God's hands at this point. I just need to get through this. And as I mentioned previously, talent baton twirling was something I knew I could do. That's why I left it for last, so it could be, my highlight, my last, hoorah. One of the funny things was, through all of the pageants I've ever competed in, from Outstanding Teen to America's Outstanding Teen to Florida to Miss America, I had never let my mom come to a talent rehearsal, ever, because she stressed me out. It stressed me out. It was, if something went left, she'd freak out about it all day long, and it just was never worth it. And so I knew I could handle it and it would be fine. So I'd never let my mom come to talent rehearsal. And that morning she had texted me and she goes, "Hey, this is going to be the last talent rehearsal we ever do. Is it okay if I come?" And I was like, yeah, absolutely. Of course. Like, it'll be great. I get to run through it twice. It'll be fine. Awesome. Please come. And so, in hindsight, obviously that was a very good thing. So when I fell, really, there's a lot that I remember, none of which is probably important of what was happening at the time. Do you know Big Chris? Was he one of the security guards at MFLOTeen? Big, tall guy. So he and I had really had a good friendship when I was the Outstanding Teen. And so then when I came back as Miss Florida, it was, this fun little thing. So he had picked me up from the Atlantic City airport, and it was like this whole back and forth thing. And so he ran to the stage, got up on the stage with me, laid down like this on the stage. And he was like, "Are you okay?" And I was like, yes, but my leg just really hurts. Like, my leg really hurts. And he goes, "Okay, well, we've called 911. It's not a big deal. Just, we're going to hang out. It'll be okay." and he proceeded to sing show tunes, like from Broadway. And so that's really my initial memory of what happened, was Big Chris laying on the stage singing show tunes for me. So, you know, that happened, and thank goodness my mom like hurtled over chairs trying to get to me. And I don't think it really hit how much pain I was in until my mom got there. And she looked at me and just like very blatantly, my mom's a military brat, and unless something had fallen off your body as a child, like you were perfectly fine, rub some dirt in it, you'll be great. What she looked at me and she goes, "Are you okay?" And I just broke down and started crying. I was like, no, I'm not okay. Like there is something wrong. And she was like, okay. And my mom started to pray over me. I got ill at that point, just overcome with pain. So that was also kind of a fun fact. Probably one of the only contestants that I've ever thrown up on the stage. But from that point, 911 got there, and you know, the ambulance, EMS got there, and I was rushed to the ER. My dad had been at the hotel, and Mary Sullivan had called my dad and let him know that I had been injured and I was at the ER, and my dad came, and it was kind of cool. I felt very presidential. I felt like I was in the back of I felt like I was like shimmying through the back. There was press there. Everyone was trying to figure out, you know, if I was going to be okay. And, you know, a long day. I ended up being driven in a police car. I had never been in the back of a cop car until my Miss America experience as well. So drove in a police car all the way into Philadelphia. They had called ahead, and I actually met with the orthopedic surgeon of the Philadelphia Eagles. So I got there, and it was just the entire thing was such a big God moment. Like every piece that played part of that day, I couldn't have asked for better. But one of those memories that forever will be, you know, one of the most special and dear to my heart about Miss America was on my way back from the hospital in Philadelphia. The police officer that had driven me, Sergeant Dooley, he asked me if we could stop off at his house. He was supposed to get off of a 24-hour shift at noon, and I fell at 11:30 in the morning, and he was assigned with dealing with me. And so he was explaining this. We went through a Chick-fil-A in a police car as well, which was pretty cool. And we stopped by his house, and he goes, "I just have to drop off this check to my wife. It's my son's middle school football photos." And I was like, "Oh yeah, oh my God, absolutely, of course." So we stopped by his house, and he came out and he goes, "Is it okay if my daughter and my son come out and meet you?" And I was like, "Yeah, of course, absolutely." So they came out, and I met them, and I was talking with them and all this stuff. And this little girl had made, you know, the little string, the string bracelets, the like crocheted string bracelets. So she had those all up her arms, and that was really at the height of that. And she was like, "I want you to have 2 of these." And I was like, "Oh." She goes, "Pick out which one you want." And so I was like, "Ooh, okay." And so I, you know, picked 2 of them, and I told her, I was like, "I promise you, I'll wear these tonight on stage for you." And she was like, "Okay." I was like, "Look for the videos, it'll be fun." And so sure as the world, you know, I go out and compete, and there were so many people, you know, all of the girls were so supportive. Tiffany Johnson, who was doing my makeup at the time, truly just like grabbed me by the shoulders and was like, "You can do this, like pull yourself together, you will be fine." So she was so like, "Nope, you're gonna go, you're gonna finish, and it'll be great." And I was like, "Okay, that's what we're gonna do." And truly, there is so much strength in your mental ability to surpass and look past negative things. You know, there's been so many things in my life that has really tested that mental ability, but I will say your mental strength is stronger than you ever can imagine. If you will just rely and believe in yourself and the fact that you can do it. Not competing never seemed like an option to me. I knew even if I could just stand there for 90 seconds, I was going to stand there for 90 seconds. And so then competing, honestly, that whole performance was kind of a blur. I don't really remember too much of it, but the next thing I remember was standing, and Hawaii, my Miss Hawaii, Crystal, was standing next to me, and I was really struggling. They were doing a bunch of different awards and stuff, and just standing up for that long that evening was really starting to get painful. And she held on to me, and I just remember standing there and being like, this is why I'm here. Like, this is the part of this that I'm supposed to be getting out of this whole thing, whether anything comes of this experience or not. These girls, these women are why I'm here. And then to be able to be a prelim talent winner, I mean, was just incredible. But to watch Mallory Hagan and the class act that she was, to be able to hold my hand, hold Carly Mathis, Miss Georgia's hand, and walk down the runway instead of walking in front of us how it had been done on the previous nights, it was such a cool experience, and it was incredible. So, you know, then finals night was a whole blur, and it was crazy because they set up a tent, like a little dressing room tent right behind the stage just for me to be able to change. And I've never had women dress me before, but I was standing there like pulling on tights. Like, these women were just incredible volunteers that happen at Miss America that are with us the entire time. They're our chaperones, and it was just such a fun experience. I think I had more fun being backstage with them trying to get into clothes without hurting myself or falling over. It was just such an enjoyable experience. And so it was more than I could have asked for, after the injury. But so many cool opportunities came from that afterwards. I had people dress up as me for Halloween, rhinestone knee brace and all. I had multiple different, pageant contestants that had just had ACLs, ACL injuries call me. And it really turned into probably one of the best things that could have happened throughout my year, because I got to talk to so many more people about this rhinestone knee brace.
So speaking of your year as Miss Florida, what was one of the most rewarding and impactful parts of that year looking back?
Looking back, I mean, there were so many highs of that year, so many highlights. Obviously, anytime I got to spend in a hospital, dance marathon at UF is very near and dear to my heart. I was on the community relations team and family relations throughout my year, throughout my time at UF. And so being able to be there in a different capacity was awesome. To be able to see, CMN kids that I had known was such a cool thing to be able to do. Separate of that, the Everglades Foundation, oh my goodness, just that partnership is incredible. Actually, when I was the outstanding teen, my Miss Florida, Rachel Todd, actually put together and worked out that contract and that partnership between the Everglades Foundation. And so it was something that I kind of watched from its infancy as the teen and then got to do as the Miss. And it's incredible. And just the school tour and being able to be an educator throughout the year was just an awesome experience. I actually, thought for a period of time that I was going to end up changing my major to be a teacher because I had enjoyed it that much. So it's just, there are so many things throughout the year that really make a lifelong impression that, you really can't substitute with just about anything. And so I'd say all of those are really big highlights for me.
Wow. And I know you continue to stay busy traveling. The job of Miss Florida is super busy, but you've also continue to stay busy with your job with the IAFF Center of Excellence of Behavioral Health, Treatment, and Recovery. You travel like 25 days a month. So
I do. It's insane.
Share how you got into that field.
Yeah, absolutely. So I realized when I got back into college from my year as Miss Florida, I still had 2 years left. I had originally been a nursing major, came back and was a telecommunications major. Really didn't know whether or not I wanted to pursue like a TV route, a radio route, something like that. All I knew is I did enjoy talking. I didn't really enjoy talking on camera, which is kind of funny, but I figured that out during my year as Miss Florida. So when I came back, I knew I wanted to do something where it was going to continue my communication skills. And also I picked up a couple different minors of things that I really enjoyed that I wanted to focus on as well. So when I graduated, I didn't really know what I wanted to be when I grew up. And so, like a lot of people, and that's okay, try everything to decide whether or not that's something you like. And so there was a period of time that I was looking to apply to Disney. I actually went through the entire process, like most women in Florida who don't know what they want to be when they grow up, decide they want to go be a Disney princess. So that's what I went and did, and got through that entire process. And then this opportunity that I currently have popped up. So I mentioned Allison Krieger Walsh was my initial contact into pageant land, and she's been a lifelong family friend, mentor, super boss. She's everything you could ever possibly want and, a girlfriend in your life. And so Advanced Recovery Systems had just started hiring on business development reps. There currently was actually a former Miss Florida that had already been hired for a role. And I was like, ooh, I want to do that as well. This is fun. This is like merging all of my worlds of pageant, school, and baton twirling, and then also a career. So I kind of didn't know what I wanted to do, but I knew I didn't want to be in Florida. And so I ended up starting, my initial role was being business development rep in North and South Carolina as the territory rep. And then from that, about 8-9 months later, the IAFF Center of Excellence opened. And it's really a incredibly unique, one-of-a-kind treatment program. And so for those of you who don't know, the International Association of Firefighters is the largest firefighter union across both the states and Canada. They cover about 320,000 lives across the two countries. And so they play such a huge role in firefighters' lives and what they have the ability to bargain for, work towards, and just rights that they have. And so we came into partnership as Advanced Recovery Systems with the IAFF to create a program that was specific to them. Firefighters run emergency calls to all sorts of situations. They see all sorts of different, very traumatic, horrible things, and being able to treat that aspect is incredible. So what we specialize in is PTSD treatment, along with related substance abuse and other mental health like anxiety, depression, things like that. And so, but we're able to treat them in a very safe space. So being able to be surrounded by the brotherhood, the sisterhood that is the IAFF creates a level of comfortable that probably isn't at most other treatment programs. And so my primary role with it is educating the members. So I kind of got a little best of both worlds of being able to speak in public and then also be on the education side of things, to making sure that the membership knows that there is help out there, breaking down the stigma of seeking mental health help and seeking substance abuse help. The fire service is 96% male dominated, and so there is very much a kind of macho ego that surrounds being in the fire service, and trying to break that down and say it's okay to ask for help. They're always the helpers, and being able to offer help is one of the coolest things for me. So it's kind of my way to give back as well, of just, knowing how many times first responders have come to my aid and my family's aid, and being able to know we're here for you and what we do is save lives. And that's pretty cool.
Wow. That's so cool that you're able to do all of that and put in your personal passions and things that have really influenced you now into your job career. That's so cool.
Yeah, it's a pretty good mesh of everything, and it's nice because I do travel like 25 days a month, so I get to see all sorts of the country, not always like big cities, but a lot of rural cities as well, which is kind of cool because it's places you would never normally go, and it's great because I have friends in every single state through both pageants and my job now. And so I did a 3-week 6,200 mile road trip last summer, and it was awesome to be able to drive from Florida. I know, to drive from Florida to Alaska and be like, oh, I know all of these people in each of these states. Where should we grab lunch? Where should we stop and see? And so it was really nice to be able to just like merge my two worlds.
That's so cool. So I like to ask a set list of questions for every guest that's on the show. And the first one is, who is one of your favorite forever Miss Floridas and or Miss Americas?
This is so hard because like now being a Miss Florida sister, it's like you love all of them. Every single one of these women have played such a huge role in your life, such a huge role in making the title what it is now. So I think for me, I'll never forget being crowned Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen and being, shell-shocked, and then standing on the stage next to this beautiful, incredible human that is Sierra Minot. And standing next to her, and she's holding the Miss Florida crown, and she leans over to me and she goes, "Do you know there's a front and a back to the Miss Florida crown?" And I was like, "What?" Because, our teen crown, it looks the same all the way around. Well, Miss Florida, there's an extra rhinestone right at the front of this crown, and I had no idea. And so that was really my first moment, and I just, have idolized the incredible woman that Sierra is. So, I think Sierra is incredible. My Miss Florida, Rachel Todd, brought so many things to the program, and just is really such a fun, free spirit to be able to watch and watch this young woman create Miss Florida to be what she wanted. Jackie played a huge role throughout my year of just being supportive, and being somebody that I could pick up the phone and call. Obviously, all of the girls that are all pretty close to, the Fechtels, Tori, Laura, like all of us are all right there. And so it's so hard to pick just one because everyone plays such a big role. But, Allison is my ride or die, the one who got me in it, and probably the one who will get me out later on. But she's just, the Krieger family has played such a big role in my life. And I just, there are so many things I can't thank Allison for, that she just means the world to me and has been the best big sister I ever could have asked for. So really those, Allison's my go-to Miss Florida.
I'm so there. I love her so much.
I know, she's great. And she's one of those magnetic people that you want to be better. You want to be the better, best version of yourself every time you speak with her. And it's amazing. It's absolutely amazing. She's done so many things for me.
So what was your favorite area of competition when you competed for teen and then for Miss?
So I think my favorite area of competition for teen was talent, because I knew I could do that. For Miss, I think my favorite area of competition was interview, for the fact that I really had to work for it. During competing for Miss Florida and then for Miss America, for talent, I had a goal every single day, and it was to do 3 no drops of my talent routine. That way, when all of the lights were on, everything was happening, I knew I could do it. The muscle memory was there. And whether that took the first 3 times or the first 30 times, I went out and I did it over and over and over. So I didn't have to work as hard for talent as what I did for interview. I did quite a bit of interview prep prior to becoming Miss Florida, and then in between the time of Miss Florida and Miss America. I actually went to a speech and communications therapist during that time, who just taught me incredible things, and really the takeaway of just being self-confident and believing what I was saying. It vastly changed my interview from Miss Florida to Miss America. So I think for me, interview was really the thing that was one of the hardest, but also my most favorite portion, because I did have to really, really work at it.
For sure. And so, what's your best piece of pageant advice for girls who are going to be competing for Miss Florida and Miss Florida's Outstanding Teen?
Yeah, this is kind of what I was mentioning about my interview prep. Was I went to a speech and communications therapist, and he told me, say the first thing that comes to your mind. The likelihood is it's the best answer you're ever going to be able to say. And it was true. And it was because that was my true self. What popped into my brain immediately was what I wanted to say. And I think, people can get really caught up in sounding like a Miss Florida, sounding like a Miss America, saying the right thing. You need to have, this phrase or that phrase. You need to be able to do all of this stuff. And while I agree, you do need to be able to manage the interview and work what you want to say into it, at the same time, you need to be yourself. And it took me a really long time to get to that point. And I think it's really funny now that I speak in front of hundreds and thousands of people every day for my job. And it's so much more fun now because I know the material that I want to talk about, but I also have the personality confidence to be able to say what I want to say as well. So if anything, be yourself, but say what you want to say and say it proudly. Don't step back. If you have an opinion, use your opinion and say it loud.
Say exactly what you want to say.
Exactly. Say exactly what you want to say. If anything, like that is the takeaway. Say exactly what you want to say, because no one can take that away from you.
Last question. How can people keep up with you on social media?
Yeah, so feel free to follow me on social media. I won't lie. I'm not the best at social media and keeping people up to date and stuff, but my Instagram handle is just my name. So MYRRHANDAJONES. So Myrrhanda Jones. And then on Facebook as well, just Myrrhanda Jones. That's the one nice thing about having a completely unique spelling to your name. Nobody else has it.
Oh, well, thank you so much for coming on today. I had such a blast being able to catch up with you and hear different stories from your years of being involved in the Miss Florida program.
Absolutely. Thank you again, Hannah. Like, this was just awesome. I've loved being able to watch as this has grown week after week. And so I'm so excited for everyone else's as well, because it's a fun little catch up. So thank you guys so much. And I look forward to talk to you soon.